webinar today is part of a broader event series on just sustainability transitions, a really long hashtag, where we discuss really big questions on how we can survive and thrive together on this earth, and how can we connect ecological, economic, and social justice challenges. And during this, the very important starting point for this event series is that if you look at the ecological, economic, and social challenges that we see nowadays, that they are all intertwined and interconnected, and that they're systemic. And that means that small changes or some alternative initiatives or innovation, these are all necessary, but they're not sufficient. We really need systemic transformative change, what we then call transitions towards more just and sustainable societies. So that's a very important starting point for a transition perspective. One of the initiatives that I'm part of, the Vital Cities and Citizens, an initiative of the Erasmus University Rotterdam, we focus specifically on cities, and we try to facilitate interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary interaction on how to make our cities more vital and and better, and how to tackle the big societal challenges. And there's many different topics on inclusivity and diversity, resilience, smart cities. And I have the pleasure of being the theme lead for sustainable and just cities. And we will be talking about that more in future webinars, but just to say a little bit also to kind of make the link to the topic for today, that for us it's very important to have particular perspective on this topic of sustainable and just cities. First of all, really acknowledging the kind of problematic power relations of exclusion, inequality, oppression, extraction, and exploitation, and wanting to understand how these power relations are being transformed and how we can empower each other to contribute to change. We also value a transformative perspective, so really looking at transitions and processes of innovation, not just technological, but also social innovation. And last but not least, a translocal perspective, by which we mean that we really want to look at the connections between the local and the global, but also between the urban and the rural, and about connecting places. So that means that when we talk about sustainable and just cities, by definition, when you talk about a sustainable and just city, it's always also about how the city connects to other places. So it's never about only looking at the city in itself, because to talk about a sustainable just city, we need to think about where does the energy come from, where does the food come from. So this was one out of many reasons that we really wanted to organize something together with others, including global social challenges, which Darren will say a bit more about in a minute, about energy justice and climate justice in a kind of really from a more global perspective. And we're very happy to have Professor Jenny Stevens with us. So the program for today, after some short introductions by me and then Dr. Julia Wittmeyer and Professor Darren McCauley, we will go to the star act, which is of course Professor Jenny Stevens. And after that, because we're a lot of people, we're going to have breakout groups where we're going to invite you to share your main takeaways from the talks, but also to share your questions that you have to Jenny Stevens with each other. And then we're going to invite you to think of one main question that you have as a group. And then we're going to come back to have a plenary question and answer session where we're going to invite you to share your questions. And at that moment, we're also going to have a visual harvest. Now, we all know that when some people, when they see breakout groups, they're like, oh, that's the moment when I go away, disappear, which you know, there may be many reasons why you cannot join the breakout groups, but we want to warmly invite you if for any reason you cannot join the breakout groups, but you can come back at 4:20 for the Q&A. That is also possible. Yeah. So if you don't want to join a breakout group, we will make sure that you get a choice. And you can also choose not to. But at the same time, we hope that you do, because we've organized these kind of webinars before. And one of the feedbacks that we got is that people really value talking to other people around the world. As I said before, Carlotta Cataldi after the breakout group. So if you want to see her work, you need to stay until then. She's going to show her visual harvest so far by then. And then she's also going to try and capture some of the Q&A, so some of the questions and answers. So if you stay for the Q&A, who knows, your question might be visually harvested. If you want to say something on social media, please use one of these hashtags, Just Sustainability Transitions or Energy Justice or Climate Justice. And you can also find us on all these social media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. And last but not least, Lara will share in the chat a link to a collective note-taking document that we have for today, which we are going to ask you to use for the breakout groups. It's optional, but you can use it for the breakout groups. But you could also already use it now. On page number 2, there's kind of just an empty page for random comments, questions. If you have links to share, publications, feel free to promote your own work. So feel free to just dump whatever you think is relevant to this topic there. Okay, I think that's it.